around the world and helping and advising them on how they should approach sports as a means to market their brand or give experiences to their customers. And I have three daughters, and my middle daughter was a soccer player who went to the University of Miami and played in almost as beautiful as conditions as you all live. And while she was there, so she went in 2000 and 2021, obviously the Supreme Court issued a law that allowed amateur athletes to make money on their name, image, and likeness. And that kind of set up this world as we know it of NIL. And at the same time, I think it disrupted amateurism in the United States. And so I was looking at it through the sports lens. But I had my daughter, who now is a soccer player, who was impacted by this. And as I walked around campus at University of Miami, I saw all this money flowing to football and basketball. And then I saw all these non-revenue sports really getting no money and no attention. And I became passionate about understanding NIL and figuring out a way to open up the doors so that every student athlete, regardless of gender, regardless of sport, had the ability to participate in NIL in some way, shape, or form, whether that's financially, whether that's through opportunity, through partnership with brands. And so I got passionate about it and got connected with a longtime friend of mine who's a big sports fan, but also a big contributor to the university, my alma mater and his alma mater. And we started talking about how we could reshape NIL and how we could open up the door for every student athlete to participate. We made an investment in a company called Student Athlete NIL, which was started in 2021. And really, that company was focused on figuring out how to set up collectives, which are these third-party organizations that work with donors and brands to connect them with student athletes and be able to help to monetize their name, image, and likeness. And so we made that investment. We started working in the space, and we started to grow the business and grow grow with the industry in a lot of ways, but also too started to really realize how we could expand beyond just football, just basketball, and into really helping student athletes to monetize their name, image, and likeness. So that's how I got into it. And then it's just continued to evolve and evolve and evolve. And eventually I became the CEO of the company. And then most recently, we sold the company to our biggest competitor and did that in a way so that we could have more reach and do more things for more student athletes.
And we are
Think about the NCAA was formed about 125 years ago, and it was formed by Teddy Roosevelt as a means to protect amateurism in the US. And so when a law gets passed and amateurism kind of gets blown up and says, well, no, it's no longer you're coming in on scholarship and not earning any money. And, many of these kids come and scholarship's wonderful and a free education's wonderful, but not if you're starving at the same time. And so a lot of what this has done is it's given the ability for not only the student athletes to get paid, but it's given the ability for the athletic department to really rethink how things are done. And fans are such an incredible and important part of the sustainability of an athletic department, from buying merchandise to buying tickets to being involved in community events and really just supporting the program. But on a day-to-day level, their participation around giving small amounts of money through a membership program or through a supporter program allows the student athletes to maybe do a little bit more while they're out there working their tails off, training day in and day out, playing on the weekends or playing at nights. They don't have the luxury of being able to live like a normal student. And in some cases, they don't come from means that allow them to order Uber Eats and be able to have a meal off campus. And so this money goes to really help support them and so that they can continue to do the things that they do. And we all know because I'm a fan, and when I know that a student athlete isn't worried about anything other than playing the game so that they can win, it makes that viewing experience for me so much better. And so if I know that I can do a little bit, or if fans can do a little bit to support those student athletes, and then when I go to the games and they win, boy, it's such a better experience. And so that's really what that goes to. And it also too, we encourage the student athletes that are receiving these funds to get out into the community, and they really are. And that's a great thing. They start to get out and meet the fans, thank them for what they're doing, and ultimately it starts to create a really cool experience for the athletic department to say, let's get more fans involved, let's give them greater access and greater opportunity. I'm a I grew up as an athlete, so I'm a big proponent of teams. I'm a big proponent of people coming together to do something greater than they can on their own. And so when I became the CEO of Student Athlete NIL, one of the first calls I made was to our biggest competitor, to the CEO of the biggest competitor. And we met 2 weeks later and we talked about what the art of the possible was. We both had a mission, and that mission was to support the student athletes at all of our universities and support them by really connecting them with brands, businesses, and supporters that wanted to prop them up. And so by coming together, we thought that we could do more. We thought, number one, we come together in terms of 70 schools that we operate their collectives or working directly with the university and their student athletes. So that was number one. Number two is last year alone, we've processed over $108 million in student athlete payments. So that's distributing to thousands and thousands of student athletes. I think we did over 12,000 transactions. Together, we have the ability to really connect with large scale brands that can come in and launch ad campaigns with these student athletes and drive more money down to support them and their needs. And at the same time, support the athletic departments because, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but this is unprecedented for athletic departments that they, through this settlement, have to come up with a lot of money to be able to support these student athletes and give them more services, more resources, more scholarships. And that's to ensure that they're all taken care of and the schools are able to continue to put these teams on the field, on the court, in the sand, whatever it may be. So together, I think we built a very cool model. It's a combination of strengths. They're really good around sales and connecting businesses with the university and with student athletes. What we've done a really good job of is building fan bases and connecting them with the students and with the athletic department. And at the same time, we're creating really cool technology that allows athletic departments and coaches to better utilize the money that they are deploying to the student athletes to ensure that it has the greatest impact and the most effectiveness. Yeah, I mean it's such a great question, and we have a number of Power Four schools, and we have a lot of Group of Five mid-major schools, and it is a big difference. Resources matter, and with the settlement, there is called it's called a cap, and so it's a percentage of the total media revenue that these schools are receiving and that and the cap this year for Power Four schools is $20.5 million that they will be distributing in value to their student athletes through cash distribution, scholarships, and other grants and other benefits. And so if you look at a large Power Four school, and Ohio State's probably the biggest example because they are the biggest. They have tremendous resources, financial resources. They're in a big market. They have large scale donors. And so you look at that and you say, well, $20.5 million, probably not a lot of money for them to be able to continue to operate and distribute. But then you look at other schools that are a group of five and mid majors that don't have those resources and don't have that support. They're scrambling to figure out where do we come up with the money. And most of them will not spend to the cap. It's just it's not realistic. They just don't generate that amount of money. And so they're really scrambling to figure out how they do it. There's going to be, I think the majority of Power Four schools, you're going to have your 80-20 rule. 20% of them will continue to be very, very powerful because of the resources they have. The other 80% are just going to continue to scramble to figure it out. One of those 80% will pop into the top 20% and then they'll pop back down and there'll be a little bit of change there. When you look at Group of Five and mid-major, the disparity is really wide. And that's the unfortunate thing because what you don't want to see is you don't want to see just the top 10 programs always competing for championships. You want to have those teams that come out of nowhere, the underdogs that come out and win and really compete. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is that money matters. The more money you have, the more money that you have the ability to build incredible rosters. So in the Group of Five and mid-major, a couple things that is really interesting that's happening. We're seeing schools that basically say, hey, look, we know we generate a lot from football, but we're really going to double down around basketball. And so they think they can compete in basketball because the rosters are a little less expensive around basketball versus football, which is an expensive team to put on the field. So all in all, you're gonna see a gap between Power Four and Group of Five and mid majors. But you have a number of Group of Five mid majors who are, I think, kind of organizing themselves to say, how do we get to Power Four spending and have that capability and credibility? And what it comes down to is really good corporate partnerships, new ways to generate revenue within the university and within the athletic department. And how do we get the fan base to really rally around us? Because I think we all, as fans, love it when the team's winning and we struggle when they're not. And so we know at the end of the day and this goes with professional sports as well. Teams that really spend their money wisely and put a great team on the field, they win games. It's just a better experience. And so I think that's kind of the focus of mid major and G5 right now. How do we spend our money effectively.
And we are joined by Chris Brown.
I wish I had a really good answer for it, but I got to tell you, it's so funny. I mean, when I first started in this business, somebody asked me what it was like being in it. And I said it's like building a house on quicksand because we're trying to build, and every time we get a little bit of sturdiness, the foundation kind of sinks below us. And so, well, I think there's clarity coming to your point around Judge Wilkins, and everyone's kind of projecting that she's going to approve the settlement. Now, with the approval of the settlement, there are a lot of components that probably will end up being litigated. Because you still have Title IX implications, you still have implications around state by state laws and what really prevails federally. And so all of that being said, one of the things that is in there is really around collectives and do collectives matter? Should they go away? Should they be regulated? All those types of things. I will tell you, there was about 6 months ago this kind of shift and move to we're not going to need collectives anymore. And some schools are still kind of going down that path. But I would say the vast majority now continue to keep their collectives, and they keep them for a couple of reasons. One is they don't internally, athletic departments don't have the resources to manage NIL in its truest form. So NIL would be being able to coach and mentor the student athletes around building their name, image, and likeness. How do you write a mission statement for yourself, and then how do you position and reach out to brands and those types of things? That's just not something that an athletic department is set up for. So having a third party like the collective can certainly help to do that. Having a third party collective can also help facilitate those and manage those brand deals for those student athletes and ensure that they get compensated the right way and they do their deliverables, which is all stuff that we do every single day. The other thing that it does is it allows an athletic director kind of a third party innovation hub because we know that while, depending on the institution, they've got to come up with a significant amount of money to participate or opt into when they opt into the settlement, it's part of their commitment to do it. That means that money's coming from someplace else. And so they have to figure out how do they get money to replace the money that they're distributing. And then and that's only in year one. This settlement is 10 years long, and I would assume during that 10-year period, the need for that money is going to increase year after year. So the third party collective also becomes an innovation hub to help solve the problems of revenue moving forward. So how can maybe it's just not about generating money for student athletes, but how do we create events, campaign, fan experiences that then generate revenue that go to support the athletic program? Because the last thing we want in the world is for sports to be eliminated, people to lose jobs, those types of things. And that's a reality across the country right now as athletic directors look at how they're going to be able to afford this moving forward. And so as we look at it, our discussions now are directly with the athletic department. We're sitting down with them and we're solving problems for them. And we're solving problems around revenue. We're solving problems around process, technology, and also thinking differently. And because right now, I mean, the greatest companies in the world always innovate. They're always thinking far beyond what I could ever imagine. And right and most of the stuff in the media was not accurate, unfortunately. And but at the end of the day, it still was a student athlete who felt like he was misled. And whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, it does create a level of distrust. There, we have strived from day one around full transparency. As a father of a student athlete, I want student athletes to be taken care of and I want them to be treated fairly. And that doesn't mean that they're overpaid or overcompensated. We also have a responsibility to help raise these kids because they're still 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old kids. And I've got three of them. So I understand when you have to put up guardrails. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of adults in the room, and in some cases, you have adults that step over the line in terms of greed, in terms of being too opportunistic in a multi-billion-dollar industry. Um, you know, our job internally, and one of our missions is really to ensure that we are protecting and looking out for every stakeholder in this. So the student athletes, the universities, the donors, the brands and businesses and partnerships. And the way that we felt like we could create transparency is really around building a technical technology infrastructure that was housed every element of the transaction and every element of the student athlete's journey with a collective. And so we did that because we wanted to ensure that there were multiple people looking in, there were multiple people knew what the obligation was. When money was paid to student athletes for an NIL deal, we wanted to make sure that the deal was actually consummated and logged and recorded, and that the student athlete got what they deserved. And so we've built a system, and I would say that in the course of the last couple of years, we haven't had those issues or incidents. And if they were, it was probably not an error in the process. It was probably miscommunication or misinterpretation. Um, I think moving forward, there's always going to be challenges because humans will be humans. Um, we hope at the end of the day that through the settlement and through much more of a kind of a cohesive and standardized process, that there'll be little room for mistrust, missed expectations, misalignment. But it's going to take the adults in the room to really get together and set that standard. It's also going to take an element of the student athletes also maybe changing their behavior a little bit. Because one of the things that has also happened is the transfer portal. And I would say that kids are getting taken advantage in the transfer portal, and adults are sometimes misleading kids in the transfer portal, and that's shameful.
Hmm.
If I'm a kid and like I went to a school for 4 years, I had the best experience of my life in 4 years, and I built lifelong friends for years. When you're 18 and 19 years old and you go to a school because you believe that, this is a school that you're going to play, every game your freshman year, and in the recruiting process, the coaches love you and the fans love you and everybody loves you. And then when you get on campus that first day, you know what? You're going to make a lot more money. And then the kid somehow gets caught up in that. And that's the stuff that I just think needs to figure out. We need to figure out how to get that under control. It's much better when kids stick around a program and grow with the program because they're also getting an experience at the University of Hawaii, and they're building lifelong friends and relationships. They become part of the community. We want them to stay. One of the important parts of what we have tried to do as a collective is we've also tried to say, look beyond NIL. Let's figure out how to retain these kids. Let's of things keep kids grounded because they see more than just the money or the opportunity to go someplace else and perhaps play or not. And my grandfather used to tell me the grass isn't always greener, and the reality is that is true. The older I've gotten, I've realized that it's not always green. So I hope that answers your question, but it's I think in anything, that's the one thing that we're always battling is the trust issue. And when you got money and you got opportunity and you got glamour and fame and all those types of things, distrust seems to pop up. And we believe really around setting really strict guidelines, using technology, having open communication is the most important thing to ensure that trust is there. And if somebody strays off and wants to go in a different direction, at least we can stand on. Absolutely right. I mean, there is something to be said for that. And but I also understand a kid that maybe comes from an under served community who has this opportunity to make a little bit of money and take care of
Hmm.
his family. Loyalty seems to go out the window with that. And you know what? I struggle with that because I also look at it and go, that's a short-term gain, and really look at the long term. But right now we have so many. I mean, over the course of the last couple of years, we've had the ability to get brand deals for thousands of kids. And so we get to meet these kids, and the vast majority of them are doing really good things with the money that they're earning. They're putting it away, they're taking care of their family, they're sending their siblings to school, they're buying a house, or they're getting an apartment for their parent or parents. And so you see those stories, you go, this is what it's all about. It's working. The system's working. But you also have the kid too that's bouncing school to school in hopes that they get paid a little bit more, or maybe the experience is a little bit better. And that doesn't always pan out. I also realize too that 99% of these kids will not go professional. And so they have to earn. And so if they do bounce and take care or take advantage of the transfer portal, and they make a lot of money and they put a nest egg away, and now they're set up to, go out and start their career, I can't fault them for that at all. Now, as a fan, starting five, play together for 4 years, do well in the tournaments. They're the ones that upset the big
Yep.
teams that have, kind of the one and dones. But so yeah, loyalty, it's funny what money does to people, but loyalty, yeah, certainly starts to go out the window.
Of course, it's a two-way street and all.
I would say to the fans, remain patient, and continue to be supportive. And this NIL has taken on in some cases a negative tone, collectives a negative tone. The whole kind of transfer portal has kind of taken on a negative tone. These are all byproducts of a decision that should have been made 10, 15 years ago that wasn't. And so there are a lot of smart people trying to figure it out, and it will be figured out, and it's going to be a better experience overall. Be patient, be really supportive. Right now, more than anything, is that what the University of Hawaii athletics and the student athletes provide us all is moments to get away from real life and stand up and cheer, join together, don the colors, and really support young people that are really working hard and doing great things. And so be patient, continue to support, and also too, get out there and ask to be a part of the student athlete and the athletic program. And you can do it monetarily, but also ideas and working together, and employing these student athletes or getting them to come out to your community and be a part of your children's events. They're all willing to do it. So it's such an important part of kind of the fabric of this country, but it's also a really important part of the fabric of our local communities are these athletic programs. So be patient, keep cheering, and it's going to be, well, let's win.